Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about tracheostomies. Now, as a nurse, I find that people either love a trachea or they hate them. Me personally, I love a trachea. I first started looking after trachees when I was a student nurse. I found trachees amazing. I thought they were really interesting. And what a responsibility for nurses to have to maintain a patient's airway with an artificial tube. These patients weren't in ICU, they were on a main ward. To me, this was real nursing, and it was something that I really enjoyed. And I went on to look after many trachees over the years. My first trachea change didn't quite go as smoothly as I would have liked. I was a newly qualified nurse and been given the opportunity to change a trachea. I'd gathered all my bits together, I felt prepared, I felt calm, and I felt confident. I carried on with the task. I'd just inserted the new trachea when all of a sudden the nurse shouted, "Don't forget to take the introducer out." Oh my goodness, I was furious. Why would you do that? Why shout at me? Of course I was going to take the introducer out. Give me a chance. Anyway, I took the introducer out, we carried on, and it was a successful change. Luckily, I'm a calm person. Otherwise, the way that nurse caused panic, it could have put me off. It really could have. So if you are a nurse supervising a student or a junior nurse, please make sure you are confident in what you are doing. I spoke to the nurse afterwards and she said she felt a little bit nervous and she felt there was a bit of a delay from me inserting the trachea and then removing the introducer. I can't comment on that because I was the one carrying out the procedure. She could have been right. However, she should never have shouted in the way that she did. Another situation I was in was when I was looking after a 4-year-old boy. I was at his bedside behind the curtain and I could see and hear that his trachea was probably blocked. I was suctioning him and unable to clear any secretions. So I pulled the crash bell. I had my emergency trachea bag by the bedside and I just carried on trying to suction and loosen the secretions. The crash bell seemed to go on forever. In fact, it was probably only 10 to 20 seconds, if that. The first person to arrive was a third-year student nurse. She took one look at the patient and she panicked. She was flapping. She said, "Annette, what do you want me to do?" I was calm, so I said to her, "Just go and get help and let them know that I will probably have to do an emergency trachea change." When help did arrive, the patient had started to cough and so was able to bring up some secretions, which I cleared. We decided as a team that we would still change the trachea just in case there were any blockages still in the tube. Luckily, that was a successful situation. It was not an emergency trachea change and it was done in a calm manner. The student nurse who arrived first, yes, she did panic, but she played a vital role in that situation. By her going to get help and explaining what the situation was, it gave others a heads up as to what they were facing, because it's very stressful when you hear a crash bell go and you run, you don't actually know what you're going to face. I give credit to that student. She was calm when she was talking to the doctors. In any situation like this, you do have to remain calm. And if we go back to the scenario where the nurse shouted at me to remove the introducer, had we have instilled that sort of panic in this situation, the outcome of the scenario could have been worse. A patient spasms at times when you're changing a trachea. The tube might not have been unblocked, so we could have been facing a very different scenario. So I guess my key message is, please don't panic in situations. Although it is scary, I was actually scared during that situation, but I remained calm. The final situation I want to talk about is regarding a 15-year-old boy with complex health needs. He didn't have a trachea, but he did need frequent support with clearing his secretions. The mum had called me into the cubicle because she said she felt something wasn't right with him and he might not be breathing. I could see immediately that he'd desaturated and no, he wasn't breathing at all. I got the mum to pull the crash bell and clear a space around the bed, and I got the bag valve mask and started giving respiratory support. The doctors arrived in the cubicle and I handed over to them. They instructed we put out an emergency crash call, and so the critical care outreach team arrived with the resus team. I stepped back in this situation and I spent my time with the mum. I could hear the team's discussions around whether they would do an emergency trachea, or should they do the trachea there, or should they take him to theatre. Eventually the ENT team arrived and a decision was made to do an emergency tracheostomy in the cubicle. I wasn't that involved in that situation, so I'm not entirely sure why and how they came to that decision, and it's something I kind of regret that I hadn't spent the time to get a debrief on the scenario and actually understand why that patient needed that trachea. Anyway, the trachea was a success. I carried on looking after this young man for a few years afterwards. He was great. He would just say, "Suction, Nettie!" And we'd built up a really good relationship, and I'd got to know him and his family really well. I felt a bit of a bond in that situation because although no, I didn't save his life, the team saved his life, I just felt a connection with him. I really enjoyed looking after that patient. I hope you've enjoyed my stories about tracheas, and if you've got any stories to share, please feel free to leave a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video.